That's You're listening to the Bladeology podcast with Gavin and
Grand Hawk, Idaho City, Idaho.
All right. We're going to jump into this like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. We are on this week with our original host lineup. This is the vocal representation of Jeremiah Burbank from PVK Vegas.
Nick Chuprin of NCC Knives.
Hamish Malay, Bison Blade Works.
And who do we have on with us this week as our awesome guest?
Cliff Wilson.
Nice. Cliff, where do you work?
I work at PVK in Las Vegas.
Awesome. Ooh. Okay. All right. So this episode was going to be the one where we're all headed to Blade Show. And Cliff, I wanted to have you on to talk about knife collecting specifically. I've worked with you in the shop. We're all familiar with you. You have a pretty famous knife collection we all are privileged to seeing on Instagram. I know that is not the entirety of your collection. I know that it spans many styles and it spans many decades, and that's what we're here to talk about today. I'm hoping to pick your brain about trends of the industry, styles, and sort of things you've seen come and go. So tell us, how did you get into this? When did you start collecting knives?
I've been collecting most of my life. I'm 50 now, and I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather was a retired police officer, and we were on a farm. And when I was 5, 6, 7, we would be out shooting, and and he would give me little pocket knives, old school old timers and Schrade and all those, when the companies were, actually really good, Buck and all that. And, he was just giving me these little pocket knives when I was that young. And as I got older, I was still fascinated with the knives and everything, and even that age, I had a couple of cousins around the same age. We'd be stealing the garden sticks out of my grandmother's garden, and we'd be sharpening out the sides into swords and just having our sword battles and such. And as I got older, I ended up going back to my parents, and we ended up living in New Jersey, and we were just outside of Atlantic City. So while I was in high school and all that, and Atlantic City at the time there a lot of conventions were coming into town, and I get to go to a lot of collectibles conventions and pick up some knives here and there as well. And some of those knives that I picked up when I was 13, 14, 15, I still have now. I remember, it hits me about every 2 or 3 weeks that I've got a couple of just really old turn of the century slip joints downstairs in a box that I picked up when I was at a collectibles show when I was, that age, 15, 16, 17. And during that same time, because I did love knives so much, my dad helped me get a catalog to a knife company. Back then there was a knife distributor called Catoctin Cutlery, and so he helped me get the catalog, and I just started selling knives to people to help me get money so I could buy more knives myself.
Nice.
And I did that for a few years, and then we ended up moving back to Vegas. And I mean, it was great here in Vegas. You had the Soldier of Fortune convention, you had knife shows, there was so much going on. And, a lot of the gun shows would have little knife shows connected to them. And then, again, with Soldier of Fortune, so many knife makers and companies were there. Cold Steel was always great, with their table full of seconds, even back in the late 80s, early 90s. So you could pull out a lot of really cool stuff out of the Soldier of Fortune and just the various shows. When I went into the Army, my first duty station was Fort Bragg, and that was a whole new experience because I really got to see more there. In Fayetteville, at the Fayetteville Gun Show, knife makers. I was able to buy an auto knife off of Walter Brend's table. At the time, I really didn't know who he was. He was a nice old man. I was a young soldier. Gave me a little bit of a deal on a knife. And I've still got that knife today. I was buying knives off of Les Robertson's table. Again, didn't even know who he was. He just had some really cool knives. I picked up a Peter Bauschip fixed blade knife, and Peter Bauschip is a South African knife maker. And I picked up one of his, I believe the model's called a Witch. And I actually carried that for well over 10 years on my LBE in the Army, and everybody was just really surprised that I was carrying it. And I was like, at the time, I was like, why not? And,
that's the point after all.
Yeah, and it just so many, Jerry Bussey from Bussey Knives. He would always be at the show. Just so many guys, so many knife makers would be at the shows, and it was great because I was just always picking up something here or there. And every time we get ready for a deployment, all the guys would line up at my door bugging me to borrow knives so we could have, so they could have something extra with them. And then once we got back, or once the alerts were called off, then everybody just, bring everything back to me. And then, I did a couple of permanent duty station changes while in the Army. One of them was Germany, which was, again, really nice because the Renaissance fairs and that they actually had, foragers making serviceable knives, swords, war hammers, you name it. Again, that was great. And, once I got out of the Army, I got into the firearms industry, and, same thing. It's, a lot of the companies, just kept on, picking up knives here and there. A lot of the companies that I had been purchasing when I was a teenager were still around under different names. I was buying knives right and left from Bally Song when I was, 17, 18, and, I bought a couple while I was in the Army, and, really hadn't paid too much attention. I didn't realize that Bally Song had changed their name to Benchmade at that point. Didn't really realize it until later on, because, one of the knives I still have new in the box downstairs, it's, is that was a Delta Raider that they were making and was really popular back in the late 80s. But yeah, I just kept on picking up that. Eventually, at that point I had a few custom knives, but in the early 2000s I really started getting more into the customs and just kind of kept building them up from there. I was actually friends with a knife dealer in New York who's no longer with us, but he was a really great guy, and he kind of helped me out, pointing out different directions and different makers and that, and then I kind of met a few other dealers, and then I started meeting some makers too, and just over the years I've just been very fortunate to pick up knives from so many different makers. I think there was so many Alishewitz and David Mosier and a lot of those guys. They were my first real jump-ins, besides a few of the others that I already had, and it's just kind of grown from there.
So I mean, really, like that's you were starting with production, moving into custom. But I mean, when you were buying knives from Walter Brend on base, I mean, those were customs, mid-techs. I don't know. That wasn't even a thing then. That was just.
Yeah, that really was. There was no such thing as mid-tech then. That mid-tech didn't really pop up until I want to say your late 2000s.
I've always been told that it was Ken that kind of coined the term or whatever. I don't know if that's true, but
Oh, the mid-tech term.
yeah, like the whole industry thing of the mid-tech.
Whenever I hear mid-tech, all I always think about is the Matt Kuchera. The
Yeah,
Dorado.
yeah, for sure. That's like the first mid-tech I knew about.
Yeah.
That's pretty far out.
It's like also custom.
Yeah, because
you could afford it. Like,
Yeah, because the ones that Walter was selling then weren't they? Wasn't it? Is it White Wolf who was working with him to make the parts?
I think so. So it would have been Lone Wolf. No, actually, sorry.
No, Lone.
It would have been. Lone Wolf and White Wolf were very similar and timed, but I think Lone Wolf might have been. No, White Wolf was first and then Lone Wolf, because Lone Wolf would eventually become the brand that Benchmade would buy and co-opt. Yep. So White Wolf was first and then Lone Wolf.
Yeah, because I think I've seen a few of the White Wolves, and we actually have one in the shop, and the one I have is not quite the same, but it is similar. And the only reason I knew who it was that I even bought it from was my. That was a Saturday I was at the show, and that next Monday, I called down to my sergeant major's office, and I was like, oh, crap, what do I do now? I think I've been good. And so I went down there, reported to my sergeant major. He put me at ease, and so he's like, I think I was a PFC at the time. He's like, so I saw you got something from Walt. What'd you get? I was like, huh? He's like, yeah, I saw you got something from Walt. What'd you get? Walt? Who's Walt? And he looked at me and said, Walter Brend. Then you were at his table there at the show. I was like, and I didn't realize my sergeant major was at the show too. And I found out later my sergeant major was a huge collector, and he had knives from all of the makers from then. And he was an interesting individual. And he was actually really good friends with Walter, and I didn't know it until I ran upstairs, grabbed it, and brought it down, and was kind of sweating a little bit because we weren't supposed to have automatic knives in the barracks at the time, and I was covering myself. Yeah, I just bought it, and I was going to send it home to my parents and such. And he was checking it out and playing with it. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah. Well, Walt's a great guy, and he makes really fantastic knives. I got a ton of them, and he was just rambling on and just BS and knives for a good 30, 45 minutes before he was like, well, you need to get back to your platoon. And so I ran it upstairs, and then a couple of days later I shipped it home to my parents just to be on the safe side on that particular one. But yeah, it's I didn't even realize it until a little bit later with him. So it was definitely interesting.
So now that's a good point. So at that point, you were not allowed to have autos, even as a service member.
Correct. Back in the 90s, we weren't allowed to have autos. Especially living in the barracks. If you're living off post, or if you're in your own private quarters, you could have whatever you wanted. But in the barracks, there were things you couldn't have. Automatic knives, you couldn't have swords. I had a katana disassembled and stashed around, at various places in my barracks for a year and a half, and nobody, because the way I had it disassembled and stashed, even with health and welfare, they never found it. But you could have regular knives, regular pocket knives, all that other good stuff. And at the time, like the Gerber Gators were extremely popular.
Oh, yeah.
The Mark. I want to say the Mark 1s because
hatchet.
Yeah, the Gerber Mark 1's really popular.
The Vietnam dagger?
I've seen them.
Or no, that's the Mark II?
You had the Mark, because that was more of a transition, because I don't think the Mark IIs were being made yet. They were a little bit farther in.
All right.
I had a lot of friends who were buying them. I didn't like them because every time you held one up and looked at it, the blade was kind of cockeyed one way or the other, so I wasn't really a big fan of it. But they had another one where It was a double edged, and it was in a Kydex sheath, but it had a button, so you put it in, it would lock it in the button. And because I was in an airborne unit, a lot of the guys liked that, because when guys were jumping, they would lose knives right and left. Oof. You know, every time that there was an airborne operation, after it was all said and done. Sorry about that. After it was all said and done,
to lock it in.
Yeah. So this particular Gerber had the button. So when you draw the knife out of the sheath, you press the button, and then it would come out. And yeah, because every time there was an airborne operation, guys would lose stuff right and left. So after everybody's kind of assembled, made sure we had all the sensitive equipment and everything, and moved out or headed back to the main area post, you'd see people driving up and pulling metal detectors out of their cars and start heading over for the drop zone, just seeing what they could find.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm here thinking about like how many people have been impaled by knives falling out of the sky, all sorts of things.
Oh yeah. Guys would be sitting there. They get nailed by a Kevlar helmet that had been pulled off somebody's head. When they're shoot deployed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was just you would have to watch out for.
You don't think about that kind of stuff.
For falling objects. Yeah, through the majority of my time in the Army, I had an old A.G. Russell one-handed knife that I always carried, and I had that. I actually had a piece of paracord, so I had it dummy corded to my pocket, and it was just enough length that if I needed it quick, I could use it quick, but otherwise I could take it off. And I love that knife, and I didn't want to lose it, but I wanted it on me, and I wanted to carry it. So, the same paracord's been on that knife, because I still have it now. Same paracord's been on that knife since '91.
So an A.G. Russell one-handed opener, is that the trifold one, or is that the pass-through frame one? How would you describe that?
It uses it's kind of skeletonized in the back, and it's got the locking system on the back, and you pull back on the locking system to close it. The design was originally by, I want to say Crawford. I know there's a couple of Crawfords, but
Crawford?
I think it's Pat Crawford. Mm-hmm. He did a design, and he licensed A.G. Russell to use it. And I mean, even today, A.G. Russell still makes that one-handed knife. It's on its 4th, 5th, or 6th generation. And I've had that knife since I was 17, 18 years old.
Oh wow.
I've even put pictures up on Instagram of it next to basically the newer generation version of it. So you've got a 30+ year difference between the two of them, but it's still around. Crawford still uses it. A.G. Russell still uses it. And there's a few other knife makers out there that have taken and changed it up a little bit for their knives and call it and given it their own name. But if you look at it and if you know the history of it, you know kind of where it came from. Demko had that 8015 or whatever it is. That's a variation off of it. He calls it his own. Mm-hmm. His own locking system, or whatever. But if you look at it,
yeah, he adds a secondary stop into it.
What's that?
He adds like a secondary stop into it.
Yeah. Yeah. But
he just came out with a new patent, I guess. He was just awarded a new patent or something.
I saw something about that, the new knife, not too long, a few days ago. So it actually looks a little more interesting than some of his other designs.
Version. It looks like a cleaner version of what Snex was doing with that bolt thing. It goes forward.
Oh yeah, is that the one he posted today or something, or yesterday?
Yeah, it looks like the same mech, but Demko's is way cleaner.
That's a weird. I saw him post that. That's a weird kind of thing. All right, so let's see.
This next one looks like crap. I'm just gonna say.
Okay. So that brings us to so we're up until sort of give or take the 2000s. So you're Cliff, you're moving from production stuff, and you're moving into custom stuff. And you mentioned Leishwitz and Mosier.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked Leishwitz work, and I was a huge fan of David Mosier. I was picking up anything and everything I could of Mosier's. And I was using a Lawrence. That's the one dealer I was talking about earlier in New York. He had Three Little Indians.
Oh yeah, of course.
King Queens.
Okay.
Yeah. He had his knife shop and his cigar shop kind of together in one.
Right.
And
I'm familiar.
he and I got along. He and I got along great, and we just spent hours just BSing knives and different things. And even when he was sick, we were still, he'd be cursing out on nurses at one moment, and the next moment we just right back to BSing knives. But between him and then Dave Stark over at Steel Addiction, I was picking up Mosier's, I picked up a lot of Mosier's over the years, between them and then just from there.
Always liked his stuff.
Yeah. No, he's a great maker, and he's progressed quite a bit over the years. But yeah, just picked up a lot of stuff over the years, and they were the ones, because I started out mainly, even though I've had a lot of knives and I've got a lot of knives, I think my first 11 knives is really fixed blades, and then from there, just by necessity, folders were more. I went down the folder line. I've got so many knives just put away in storage here, from the 80s and 90s that were all original, Benchmade Belly Song, or Gerber, Cold Steel, all fixed blades, and it carried over definitely in the Army, just because whether it be on the belt or on my LBE. And about the only folders that I carried while I was in the Army was my A.G. Russell, and then I'd also picked up. I put the Brend in collection, and at the same series of shows, I picked up a Rob Dalton auto that I was actually carrying under my duty gear because I was an MP, and we weren't given a lot of ammo and weren't given a lot of things that we needed, and so anything extra we could have on us was just a plus, because every once in a while things would kind of go south for us, and for many years the only folders I carried were just the A.G. Russell and the Dalton.
Now, where were you stationed during this time?
I was for a Bragg. I was at Bragg from 91 to 96.
Oh, okay.
And then I went to Germany, 96, 97, 98. Well, at 97, 98, in Germany. Then I came back here to the States, 99 through 2001. I was down in Texas. And then from 2001 to 2004, I was actually here in Vegas, assigned to a unit here. And I had a really bad back injury, so that kind of was that was it for me for my military career.
Now, as you were moving the station to different places, especially Germany, did your knife collecting change a bit? Because as you were saying, you're going to local shows and stuff like that, and selling your Germany. I don't know where in Germany you were stationed, but still in Germany, there's a different type of knife style that was very popular over there.
I was mainly sticking with the fixed blade still. Then there was a little shop on one of our concerns that we could pick up some pretty cool swords and some nice knives, and I was still, my focus was still more fixed blades, and especially after I'd met Jerry Bussey when I was at Bragg, and just some of his fixed blades were just bulletproof, and I was just like, wow. And I kept progressing with that. So while in Germany, I was still in the fixed blades, and you know, 'cause between that and then the Renaissance fairs, because again, Europe, I mean, they've got Renaissance fairs all the time, everywhere, especially in Germany. And so it was, daggers, short swords, the works on that. And coming back here in Texas, still hitting shows and that, I was still the fixed blades. I mean, I was picking up folders here and there, but my main focus was the fixies. And I really didn't jump into the folders as much until probably 2003, 2004. And that's when I started focusing more on folders. I was carrying a few different ones and rotating them, and just enjoying what I had. And a lot, they were the standard. They were your Spydercos. I broke so many Spydercos. It's between Spydercos and Swiss Army, I broke so many of them.
What's like the main fail point on a Spyderco? Never broken
Spyderco
one.
Enduras were extremely popular. You could buy them at the PX, but it's like I guarantee you break the tip. But the steel's soft enough that you just use a stone and put a new tip on it from there, and then then from there you got a little bit of more strength in it. But they were softer steel back then.
Well, at that time you were probably
Those guys were just
buying the clippets, so you got the plastic clip on the frame.
yes, yeah, those were them.
Those are probably snapping off
And
that
then,
time too. Because
again-
I'm holding now is a clip in there too. And look at these clips. I'm like,
Pretty amazing.
seems nice for
Sal was
manufacturing.
Able to do that, like
Yeah,
make it mainstream to put clips on knives.
It's weird to think about.
yeah.
a
Well,
time when
that's one of the
wasn't
reasons
there.
why my A.G. Russell was basically dummy corded to me.
Right.
Was because there was nothing like that back then.
No attachment. Yeah.
And at one point I pulled up because I'd picked up again same time frame back in the early '90s. I picked up one of those Gerber Parabellums. And that was a pretty solid knife, and I was carrying that on my belt for the longest time because I just really wasn't a fan of the Gerber Gator, but I really liked the Parabellum, so I was carrying that for many years. I've still got it around here in a drawer somewhere, just kind of beat up. Medallions are kind of missing, but still works. So it's a good knife. Again, Gerber was a lot better back then. So.
Yeah, that was a different era of Gerber.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely was.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I feel like they're stepping up their game again, though.
Yeah. Yeah, for the longest
One
time.
Rich. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say for the longest time. Yeah, I when I started, I stopped looking, and when I started looking at them again, they just didn't seem like what they were before. So I just kind of just completely ignored them for many years. Just focusing on others. I still like the Cold Steels. When I was really enamored when Cold Steel came out with that Recon folder that had their version of
Recon
an
one?
Axis
The
style lock.
Recon series.
Yep. The
I was
original ones made out of
infatuated with that
Japan.
one, too.
I love those ones. I was really disappointed when they moved it to Taiwan.
Those original
He got all
Japanese
teary-eyed.
Cold Steel.
Yeah. Oh, I was running around everywhere I could trying to find some of the Japanese ones when that happened, and that was
remember
a
seeing
factor
those.
in me. But I
Remember seeing
What else
those
about
online?
the Gerber?
The Gerber.
What's that?
Say your thing, Elijah.
Oh, I was seeing those Japanese Cold Steels online, and I never knew about them. I was like, wait a second, they used to make those in Japan, and they'd be on eBay or whatever for sale, $350, $400. I'm like, what in the hell? Are you crazy?
Yep.
$400 for a Cold Steel? And knowing what I know now, it's like, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've still got one of them sitting around here, and I had bought one of the Taiwan ones because I wanted to compare them. And actually, I think my daughter has that. I gave it to I carried it around for a while, but then I'm giving it to my daughter, and she has that one. So
I don't think I've ever even held a Japanese-made Cold Steel.
I used to have a few Cold Steels because Not in Fantasy, when I first started collecting, almost 10 years ago, Not in Fantasy used to really rep the Recons. And so I had a few of those. If if you collected any of those knives, you had to buy the crap. I forget what it's called. The bigger series where it's like the 7-inch blades and stuff like that.
Oh, the Voyagers?
Well, there's the Voyager. Well, yeah, the Voyager series. But there was another version of
Talking
that
about the
series a little
Espada?
bit bigger. The Espada, yeah.
Yeah, the Espada.
I used to like daily digest. What was it? Full 100% proof or whatever. The videos. I would watch those like back to back all the time.
Yeah, but what I was saying about Gerber, Gerber's been was this point for the last few years. But when me and Elijah were at SHOT Show last year, we made it to the Gerber booth, and they were making a big deal how they revolutionized their knives.
Oh yeah,
And all they did was
fastball
add
thing?
bearings. Yeah, the fastball thing. I was like, they just added cage bearings, and like we patented this new system. But the knives are good. They were G10. They were machined. They were a step up, and they were pretty good. Obviously, they're overpriced for what they are compared to things that are out these days. The quality was pretty good.
CRKT. Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty good. Like I said, compared to what's out these days, it's a little overpriced. But for what their category of marketing was, they needed to do it. But like they're pushing really hard with giant banners about their new fastball patented system, and I'm like, this is literally just the same cage bearings that I buy for my knives, and everyone else does. It's like it's not like they remade them.
Yeah,
They literally bought them from the same wholesaler.
You have to recognize that the marketing that appeals to is not the marketing in a trade show. In a trade show, it's going to blend in, like, obviously they're just cage bearings, but that marketing on like Walmart or a big box store, people who are unfamiliar with that are going to look at that and go, "Oh man, like this is badass." Like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. For their marketing, like that's what they kind of needed
Yeah.
because as they weren't catching up with the times, what everyone else is doing. But like at SHOT Show, that banner for that new
that's
fastball
hilarious.
system was
It's
it was a pricey
like,
banner and a pricey table that they set up for it.
It's like on the box, the kind of knife is like it says like has ball bearing pivot or something, Like that's the selling
revolutionary
point.
fastball mechanism.
Yeah, most
Patent
people that
pending.
see that, it's probably their first time, like knowing that kind of thing is used in a knife.
Yeah, they were like, "Wait, what? Like ball bearings? Like, huh?"
Yeah,
It's
your
weird.
Walmart customers,
Like on them spinner thingies.
Yeah, on the spinners.
which is cool that's actually distilled down now into like you can buy that at a Walmart, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's like taking over. It's like an industry standard now. Bearings.
Well, that brings around to a question, Cliff, that I had for you, which like the evolution of, and it might be getting a little off topic depending on where you are in your timeline, but the evolution of like purchasing knives from a catalog. Like it's insane that A.G. Russell still produces a catalog. I love it, but it's crazy that they do, and they have been this whole time. But the progression of purchasing knives through a catalog over the phone, and then like the transition to like internet sales, and then eventually like social media. We don't have to do that all in one, but I mean, just in the early 2000s, like the Three Little Indians. Did he have a website?
Yes, he did.
He did. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Can we just kind of brief over the transition there from catalog to internet? Like, what was that? What was that sort of like?
I don't know. It made things easier. I guess for me it did anyway. Because I was still getting catalogs at the same time, so I was looking at everything, and I don't know, just the internet. Looking at it now, obviously things are so much easier now, but it made it easier. You just had to spend. You would take more time hunting around because, when everybody went from catalog to internet, and the internet was just coming up, and so you have all your pages, and you have to go through page after page after page on the internet. It was literally like looking at a catalog online, because you have to, especially when you're looking for something specific. So back then when I was looking for an Elishewitz or a Greg Lightfoot or a Mosier, one of those guys, I would have to really hunt through pages, the different pages on the different websites to find the knives I was looking for. And then again, the picture, because the quality and everything, still spend a lot of time on the phone talking to the companies or dealers with questions. But I mean, I don't know. For me, it would take a little bit more time than the catalogs, because I just see it there. Go, oh, okay, cool, that one there, and I'd call up and place the order. But online, then it's kind of it was bringing out a few more questions for me, and that's how I got to know a lot of those guys pretty well back then.
That's interesting that, like, so in a catalog you have maybe the front and a flip, or maybe just the front. I don't even know if they would. I mean, I guess you don't have to show the lock side of a fixed blade, but there would be less pictures in a catalog, and it would be easier to purchase. But online, there's more pictures, and I feel like I see that sometimes just with our customers. Like, the more pictures there are, the more questions people have. They're like, wait, like they feel like they're missing something, or like something's being hidden if it's not just like blatantly right there.
Yeah, I mean that, and with the advent of, I mean, for me, I've been around knives for so long that I had a really good understanding of them. It's just at the time the pictures being uploaded weren't the best, and so questions would pop up.
Okay.
And that was for me why I would be calling. Nowadays, you get that because you have so many new collectors who don't know. They don't know the histories of either how the companies came from your carbon steels to your stainless steels, or how the companies came from, or makers came from these designs to these designs. There's, just the advent of social media over the last, within the last 10 years.
Right.
But social media really pushing more the last 6 or 7. It's brought so many more people into the knife collecting world, but it really hasn't helped them in the knowledge area. So they're trying to play catch up, and well, what about this, or what about this? And it's like with us, we get so commonly, especially when companies jump around with their steels.
Right.
And we get that a lot, from LMAX to 204P to M390, and then you have suddenly somebody pop up with D2, and you get a lot of these newer collectors that they don't know the history, or they don't have the knowledge base in this, what the steels are, or how the steels will, for lack of a better term for me at the moment, how the steels work.
Right. No, I follow you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I get that completely.
So it's like all they know is this, and they don't know about 1095, D2, so many great carbon steels, W2, A1, A2. I mean, you name it.
A2.
Those are all great steels. They're carbon based.
Steel.
Yeah.
And they don't know, because all they're seeing now across the board is M390.
Like cutting edge super steels.
They're seeing the cutting edge super steels, and a lot of them are chasing those because that's they're the flavor of the month, or they're the trend. But they also don't know the differences, and that's like one of the things we're getting now. We're getting a lot of M390 and M204P, or excuse me, M390 and 204P, and those seem to be two of your more popular ones at the moment. They don't realize the differences between German steel and American steel, or the lack of differences between the two. In the same note, you still have companies using 154 CM and CPM 154, which are great steels. I happen to be a really big fan of CPM 154. I think to me, it's a really good catch-all steel. And it, but they're kind of looked down upon, especially 154 cm. It's a very good steel, but it's just looked down upon so much these days because of these newer collectors coming in, just on the trend on the new super steels. So
Yeah, it's like it seems mundane, based upon nothing, just the fact that it was there before, and there is something else that is now new, so it just must be better.
It's the new hotness.
Yeah, right. It's just this new thing, but right. No, 154 cm will do it's a great steel. We'll do all the cutting things that you will ever need to do, and it probably won't punch through a fuselage in a helicopter. It might, but that's not what you're ever going to use it for, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's not.
Or you can chip a piece of flint and have a sharper edge than you'd ever get on any knife ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and the funny thing is so many of the newer collectors and that they look down on the carbon steels a lot, and as we mentioned with your D2s and your 1095s and all your A series steels and all that. And again, they're all fantastic steels. They have they kind of have their own little place and niche. And the funny thing is you have 3V out now, which the newer collectors aren't really even paying attention to the fact that it's a carbon steel.
It's like secret. They don't even know.
I think
3V and
it's
M4.
hilarious. It's just like, and all I know is everybody keeps telling them it's strong steel. It's a strong steel.
It's good strong.
It'll take
good, strong
it'll take a
steel.
beating and keep on going. And it's like, it's just like the other steels. Yes, your content, your molecular contents and such are different to allow for this versus that.
Right.
They don't realize it, and so many makers are using it. And I don't know. I don't really think they're even asking, because the collectors are just going, yeah, I want that. When they're sitting down with the customer, I know the production companies aren't. They're just making it, putting it on, sending them out. But with some of the custom makers, just because the way the collectors are now, they'll sit down with them, and the collectors are going, yeah, that, I'll take that. And the maker's like, well, I have these options. What would you like? Would you like what steel? These are the steels that I work with in the ranges. And they're like, oh, no, I'll take that. And some of the makers these days just aren't even. They're like, okay. They don't explain differences or anything. They're just like, okay, you got it. And it's just like with handle materials too. The same thing is, from your micartas to your G10s to, again, part of the collecting trend nowadays is everybody wants, the fancier materials, your mokurtais, your zircuitais, your mokumeis, all of those versus your traditional handle styles. Really seeing some really nice wood on the scales is in the very minority these days. We're seeing some stag on scales these days is in the very minority numbers these days.
Dude, I love stag. Can I just say that?
So do I.
Stag
I love
is
stag too.
great.
I love stag.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that GTC uses it, because he's such a cowboy.
Yeah, he's
But he's also like a space cowboy, so he's like, fuck, I'm gonna put some stag on this.
I'm gonna put some stag on this. Fuck it. Like, stag is legitimately, like, I have two smaller blackjacks that actually have A2, and it's like the old blackjack that were made in the US, and they have stag handle. Like, it's legitimately, those are very comfortable. Like, stag is a great
Blackjack?
handle material, because it makes sense. It has these like dips and grooves and like high points, and like when your palm starts sweating, like it's actually like, it's great.
Natural grip.
Yeah, like it's
As
I don't
far as
know.
steel,
Not
though,
a fan.
like
I like it. It's great.
it's very old school, I guess, Nick.
The stag?
Yeah, that's why Nick don't like it.
Well, there are
I like
makers
that
out
it's not
there.
symmetrical.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true.
I like symmetry. I was like, no.
Okay, so Nick's more OCD on how it comes
yeah.
out. I know there are a lot of
Definitely
newer makers.
Yeah, like I wish
out.
knives didn't have to have clips on them. It's so much
Oh.
nicer.
Well, I know there are newer makers out. They don't like using stag because once you put it on, you have to start grinding it or start forming it. It stinks.
Yeah.
And so they don't like that. Or they'll get halfway through and they crack the stag. Yeah, and so, but that's just, I don't know. To me, that's part of the game. It's like, okay,
You can't find any flat pieces.
yeah,
So you're like Bob Neal, and you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna make the damn knife curved to fit the stack.
I mean, that's an adaptation. But no, I mean, you're right. It's like that's just part of it. Like if whatever the material is, any complaint is just part of the job. I mean, that's just it.
Yeah, I've heard it smells pretty awful when you're grinding it. Smells like burning hair or something.
Any natural material smells like burnt hair
Yeah.
when you grind it.
I think
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it is burnt hair.
It is
pretty
burnt
much.
hair. It's hair
really thick hair.
follicles. Yeah.
No, it's same thing like if you grind plastics, they tend to burn. It's the same kind of smell. It's essentially what I tell people. Anytime you grind horn, it smells like the dentist's office, except like if you had like a rotten tooth.
That's something to
and,
think
and
about.
that's just something that's just part of the territory. It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
It's when you're working with natural materials.
So, Cliff, we were talking about handle materials. So, what's your over the years? Have you bucked the trends? Have you flavored the trends? Where does it go?
Well, I'm a collector, so I do like a lot of the different materials. I do have knives with Mokutai and then Milkumei, and I'll be one of the first ones to stand up and raise my hand that I am a sucker for Zerk. I love Zerk on handles.
Dark metal.
But but on that same note, the handle materials I really prefer is G10 and micarta. They are they're the better, to me. They're some of the better just down and dirty materials. If you're gonna get a user knife, all the other materials are great. Carbon fiber is great and all that, but to me, micarta and G10 are just a better way to go, especially being micarta. And those are for your down and dirty user knives.
Cliff, I'm working on something right now.
All elements. You can put them on about anything. Just great materials to use for knives.
Cliff, I'm working on something right now, and it's gonna have some micarta handles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanna
My
take it
favorite's
back to
carbon
the basics.
fiber, but G10 is the most stable material I've ever worked with.
More so than
No,
tie.
just-
We're talking non-metallics here. A metal's a metal at the end of copper's.
I was
Copper's
saying,
still stable.
titanium again. It's a great material, but it's and it's nice for every day. You're carrying a knife in your pocket every day, and you're doing just in general minor tasks. From letters to boxes, to minor stuff. But if you're getting into, you're using that knife and you're just beating the hell out of it. Again, at least to my thinking, just in looking at knives and watching knives and playing with knives over the years, when you're getting down there and you're really using it and you're having to choke up on it, micarta and G10 are just some of the better materials. Again, my opinion on that one. For that, it's if you've got good texturing on your G10, your hands are getting sweaty, they're getting wet, you're wearing gloves, the G10's great. And micarta, and it's a little bit of a softer material, but same thing. If your hands are sweaty, they're getting wet, you name it. It's a material that you can still maintain and hold on to.
Yeah, I mean the I don't know, the grip factor is huge. Obviously, if you have gloves on or something, or if you're in the field and you're getting into it, like heat and wetness, really that's the trick. You can't lose that. You can't lose that grip.
And also a brand new knife with micarta on it just has a good smell to it. I don't know if you're familiar, but
I'm not
it has
really
like
smelling my new knives, my guy.
I mean, you get a new SE out of the pack, and it's like the handle has like a smell to it. It's like I'm ready to go out in the woods. And
never
cut
been
shit
my
out.
first thought. Oh, let me smell this new Essie I got. It's like, let me see if it cuts paper well, or let me see if it nicks my nail. But
Well, you know, everything.
They have an odor.
It's
You
that
have an
new
odor.
nice
It's-
smell. You know, it's all right.
You're carrying it around until you get sweaty. It like smells weird for a while. So I don't know.
Sure.
Well, that's probably just from the way that the micarta is made up.
Yeah, probably or something.
Yeah.
Because you have because your materials and and then your mixture of your materials, your fabrics or what papers, fabrics, whatever they use to make the micarta, and then the adhesive bonding material that they mixed in, to keep it all together and allow once it's hardened and once they adhere it to the steel and then they start shaping it, you'll get what you're smelling there is what those materials kind of combined. The makeup of those.
I know when
but
I
I know
first
what you're talking
discovered
about.
it was awesome.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of bussies with micarta handles, so I know what you're talking about in that smell or the odor.
That new smell.
On them.
don't encourage his illusions,
That
Cliff.
smell.
Yeah, don't,
Because
don't
I
make
was
it any
using,
worse, man.
I was
alright?
using wooden handled like Helle and like Swedish stuff for bushcraft, and then I'd switched over to an Essie it was the first time I'd ever like experienced the micarta handle, and I was like, damn, this is the ticket. This is the way to go, especially for
Yeah, but-
bushcraft.
And the first time you actually had it in your hand and felt it and were able to just get a good grip on that handle, I bet you definitely felt the difference there.
Oh yeah.
You gotta get that grip, dude. That's the thing. You gotta do it. All right, so let's cruise right into it. How much has social media destroyed knife collecting, or made it better? Okay.
Well, it's definitely expanded the knife collecting community. I'll give it that.
Well, that was very politically correct of you, Cliff. Okay.
It's expanded.
A lot of guys see it. Oh, that's cool. They'll see the pictures, and they'll kind of jump on it from there. It's expanded it. It's helped a lot of knife makers and knife companies in that respect. As to, I think it's taken away, and I've already kind of touched on that. It's taken away from the history, and it's taken away from traditional materials.
Right.
Because everybody wants the new greatest thing, or the new feng shui steel, or the new, you name it, and it's taken away from your traditional steels and your traditional handheld materials and your traditional knives.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, just more
for a
tradition in
long
general.
time. Yeah, for a long time, slip joints have kind of fallen out of favor, except for a niche group of people. They've just within the last few years suddenly started making a bit of a comeback. Again, you had your niche hardcore slip joint fans, but that was it. And with Tony Bowes and what's the other guy? Davidson. There's a slip joint maker from down south named Davidson who's really good, and then Enrique Pena. And Doc Tabor and a few of those other guys have kind of helped to bring it back to light and get more people interested in it. But for the longest time, it's got to be a tactical folder because it just has to be a tactical folder.
Right.
When I was younger, going to those shows, like in the early 2000s, it seemed like you said, like all tactical stuff because of wartime. Like it just seemed like the mindset, like everybody was trying to make like military, like centric stuff.
Well, that's kind of it in any of the industries like that. whether it be the knives or the gear, the guns, the holsters, the uniforms. Oh, the Army had just adopted this uniform. So next thing you know, you get guys running down to the military surplus store, seeing if they can get that type of uniform or that type of patterning or stuff like that. The military starts a lot of it, or the military-oriented equipment, or in the case for our purposes here, knives, start a lot of that. And you saw that with a lot of the knives that Gerber was making, because Gerber's been a military contract. They've had military contract knives, or they've been a military contract company for essentially since Vietnam.
Yeah, a couple years now.
Same
Way
thing with
back.
K-Bar or Camelus. So a lot of those knives are popular on the civilian side. And just offshoot, a lot of makers became popular because of that, because, they would pick up their, a military contract for a small run here. So pick up a small military contract run here. Emerson would pick up a small military contract run there. And suddenly everybody's, I need to grab that, I need to grab that. That really helped. That really pushed Emerson to the forefront of the knife world with a lot of his naval contracts. Everybody's like, and jumping on. So that's what made him start developing his, going from his Blackbirds and CQC6s, to the civilian market wanting them as well. So the CQC7s, the CQC8s, it brought him up to enough light that firearms companies were looking at him too. So H&K approaches Emerson, hey, make a knife for us. Boom, you got the CQC10, and it progresses from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. The Emerson line has expanded a lot, like a great deal.
Yeah.
And you can go back, you can trace it back, and a lot of it is due to the military contracts. If you look at a lot of the knives he was making during his garage days, he was making a lot of standard fixed blade knives, a lot of standard knives back then, and selling them. And the military contracts are what really brought him to the forefront, and that changed the dynamic. And most of his production from there went to your tactical style of knives.
Emerson is a great. That's a great segue, because Emerson holds, I think, a special point in our journey here, because. Talk to us a little bit about the USN. I know you've been a serious USNer for a little while, if I remember correctly.
I first joined USN around 2009, 2009, I guess. I had a couple of friends who were also knife collectors and former military, and we were just all working together, and that they kind of got me into USN. USN started off as basically a bunch of guys that were just really annoyed or upset with how Blade Forums was going, and they decided to branch off and do their own thing. And at one point, Les Robertson had coined the term for a lot of the guys who were the hardcore Emerson fans, and he coined the term the usual suspects. And they took that, and that's what they used to start this new knife forum. And it started out as just a bunch of knife collectors and knife users who were fans of Emerson. And it has progressed and grown exponentially since then. And I don't know exactly when USN started. I want to say 2000, early 2000, 2002. It's kind of hard because they had a big crash back in 2004, just because the the forum servers weren't the greatest back then, and they lost everything that they had, and so they had to rebuild everything. And so when you look at a lot of the old school collectors, a lot of them have been there since 2004. That's just because when they had to rebuild the USN site and then progress from there. But it had been around for a couple of years before then, and it's just grown. So many knife makers joined it. And so many more collectors, and it was for the longest time a collectors forum. And as they got the first gathering going, and lukewarm at success enough, just like just like the Las Vegas show was, last year on its first year. You had a small room with a lukewarm reception, and then they decided to keep it going. Because one of the nice things about the USN is they've had a lot of really strong knife makers in the forum with their own sub-forums, so they were able to get some of them there. And they've continued to do that over the years. And the next year, same thing, a few more of them came. And the next year, same thing, a few more of them came, and it just kept building up until now. Now the USM gathering's a major show, and, a lot of makers will make it. They'll put out, I'm only going to do 2 shows this year, Blade and Gathering, or I'm only going to do 2 shows this year, Gathering in New York. We'll space out enough time to make a few knives in between. But it's become enough of a powerhouse that it is one of the shows that a lot of the knife makers, when they have to pick and choose, they pick it. And you guys have been there for the shows the last few years as well. You can see how much it's just grown in the last few years. I've been to what was last year? It was 11.
Yes, G11.
Yeah, and my first one was G3. And it's just grown so much since then. Literally more than doubled in size since then. It just,
wow,
if not tripled, really.
Amazing.
It's and my first gathering, I was, because I really didn't get to go to much in knife shows because I was working a lot, and even now that's the only real show I get to go to, because again I'm always working a lot. So for me it was like I was hog wild in there. G3, I think I walked out of there with I walked out of there with I think I walked out of there with around 20 knives in my bag.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Damn, I was guessing like maybe 5 or 10, but not 20.
Damn.
Jesus.
No, and the bad thing is well, not really a bad thing, but I walked out of there with this really funky. I don't even know what to describe it because I've forgotten what the name of it was, but it's a cross between an axe and some kind of pick thing that DJ Urbanowski from American Commie.
Oh wow! I bet that's cool.
Made. He made that thing, and I just saw on the table. I was like, "Oh, I'll take that." And he'd actually, I bought a few things from him through the forum, so he knew me. So, and then that same show, I bought a Wakizashi off Sal Monero's table.
Jesus.
Was it one of his?
Yeah. It was, Sal made it, CPM 154 with a black G10 scales, and it was a Wakizashi.
Hey.
And
do you still
he
have
was
it?
he was like, oh yeah, I still have it. Yeah, nice. that thing's kind of a pride and joy. It's fantastic, Milwaukee. Sheath. Dave Brown told me I should really send it to him to make a new sheath because I think the sheath was a little much for Sal. But the walkie itself is a fantastic knife. I love it. But that was one of the things I saw. I'd be walking around with those two things sticking out the back of my backpack through that show, and it was just, I just, for a couple of years I was going crazy at the show because that was my only real fix in that area, and so I would save up squirrel money way off this side, and when I got to the show, I'd be able to grab some stuff that I wouldn't normally be able to grab, and just really enjoy it and a lot of fun. And then got to meet a lot of other collectors that I'd only just talked to on the forums, or again, it's a first time meeting them and realizing that I'm not the only one out there like this. And my wife tends to call me crazy quite a bit, and
That's right.
through the show, I found out I'm not the only crazy person like that. So it was a real good thing for me on that one.
Well, the USN is definitely like I think I would not be the only one to describe it like this, but the USN is not a casual show. It's like everybody is there for the agreed upon reason. Like there are no people just like kind of passing through. Like if you came to Vegas for the USN, like you are there to hang out and talk shit and get knives. Like it's not like Blade Show.
Oh, there was a knife show in town.
Yeah.
Like, we came to look at it. Like no.
Blade Show definitely has people just kind of walking through, and like New York, not much, but like you do get knife shows where people just kind of stumble upon it. Like USN is not that. USN is like you see the same people every year, pretty much. One or two people who you didn't see last year, but who are like, oh no, I've been part of this forever, and I just haven't had a chance, and now I'm psyched to be here. But you definitely get that knife community feeling at USN. It's a show unto itself.
They've always said that in like the description. They're like this is not a knife show. This is like a get together.
Right.
Which it is.
Yeah. I try and warn people about that because it's because people are like, yeah, I heard there's gonna be a knife show in town and this. I'm like, it is a knife show, but just be prepared just be prepared when you walk in the doors. You're gonna see stuff in there
shunned.
you will never have imagined.
Right.
You've never seen anything like some of the knives you'll see. You may never see some of those knives ever again. Once they're sold, they will get squirreled away into collections, and they will never see the light of day. But you will see stuff that you will never see again, or you will never imagine seeing. And I warn people, it is a collector's show, so you're going to see a lot of fantastic knives, a lot of gorgeous knives, and a lot of expensive knives. So just be prepared walking in the door.
That's knife shows are like that, and that's what's fun. I mean, the USN is like that, and then trying to prepare people for a knife show is like, I don't know, man. I don't know if you can do it. Like you just try to tell people, like, look, I know this seems crazy, but like this is how it works.
You mean like casuals or what? Like,
yeah,
what
just trying to describe a knife show to anybody. Even casuals who've never been to a knife show. It's just like there's so much going on. Like try to describe to someone going to Blade Show. It's like just forget it. Like it's insanity. There's just so much to see. Even at USN, there's so much to see. You get lost.
Yeah. Especially now because it is getting so much, or it has been getting so much bigger.
Yeah.
It used to be, when I first went around the third one, you could run in for the day and run out and you're good to go. But now
there's like Spyderco and Boker and Benchmade, and like it's all really weird. 'Cause, they have like they have like these tiny little booths at this show, and you're like, what is going on here?
Yep.
But I mean,
what do you mean? What's Spyderco and
it just seems like such like a, it's like a
quaint.
Yeah, it's so much of a community show, and then like you have these production companies who, no matter how quaint you think the show is, they take it. It's a serious show. Like they take it. Yeah, and they're like, oh no, this is it.
Any of the others.
Oh yeah, like this is like
you can just walk up and just have a conversation with like the head of this multi-million-dollar company.
Exactly. Like you can't. That doesn't happen in any other industry. People are like, oh yeah, there's just
Sal's
the
like,
owner.
hey, what's up?
Yeah, he's just like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, sure, like I own this. Like, cool. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Was the guy from Spyderco? What's his name? Les?
Sal Glesser?
Oh yeah,
Sal. Yeah, Sal. Yeah. I mean, Sal will be there. Over the years, I've seen him there for both days, and some other years I've only seen him for one day. But yeah, I've seen him there talking to people. The guy, Tim Reeves. I've seen him at some of the shows on their table.
Oh yeah.
Emerson, he will sit there, and if you can you go to Emerson's table, and if you get the chance to talk to him, it will be him talking your ear off, not you walking up as the collector going, oh my God, that's Ernie Emerson, and just your chance to meet him and talk with him. He will actually talk your ear off, and Mary will walk over and drag him away. It gets pretty interesting.
Yeah. No, the owners of all those companies and the custom makers are all there, and they're more than happy to talk to you.
I remember the first time I went over to Spyderco to go talk to Sal, and I finally was able to see him because he was so busy, but I was scared and nervous, and he was just talking like a normal guy, just no problem.
I mean,
I was like, damn, that's like the head of Spyderco.
There might be something about meager beginnings, amounting to exceptional outcomes or something. I don't know, but I mean, these most of these guys
They're
are
so accessible.
Yeah, I mean, the story of Spyderco is pretty it's kind of ridiculous. So I mean,
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that would have had to have been kept you pretty level-headed. But yeah, I mean, shows like that are a great part of the community where people can just walk up and talk to these guys or the makers or whoever.
They're just available. Yeah,
they're just there. I mean, I would definitely think that USN was. I don't know. There's still reasons to check out the USN forum. I don't know if it's as relevant as it once was, but I know that USN was the last holdout relevancy, because I think that Blade forums was I don't know that anybody. I mean, okay, I'm sure somebody still goes on Blade forums, but I know that USN is still somewhat relevant now, even though social media is still there, and I think that a lot of people would just relegate Blade forums to the past.
No, I don't think so.
No?
Blade Forum still has a very strong presence. Blade forums in USN are pretty much, as forums go, because forums seem to be a dying breed because of the advent of social media and the progression of social media between Instagram and Facebook and such. But Blade forums in USN, they're still there. They're still relevant, but they are the last of the dying breed. There's still a lot of people on both of them. I think more so with Blade forums these days.
Oh, okay. All right.
You still get a lot of traffic through Blade forums because they break up a lot of the stuff they do. Some of the makers still just work. Will still work through that forum. So the
only problem with the forums was the ease of Instagram. It blew up so much because of the ease of uploading photos on forums. Even to this day, you still need a third party server, and Photobucket doesn't work now. So there's other servers, but if you wanted to put a photo up, you had to put it up in a different website on a different account, and then link it over, and it was just a pain. Or if you want to reference another photo.
Yep, and that's what's really pushed them down. That's what brought Instagram and Facebook to the forefront, is just being able to take that picture on your phone, uploading it, and going.
It's bam, it's right there.
The one thing I would always use USN for, not so much recently, but I would always get on there to look at the high-res images of Todd Rexford's work.
Oh, okay.
Now, that's where it came in handy.
Yeah, a lot of the makers will put some really nice pictures up because, again, they're selling their product.
Yeah, nice documentation,
Yeah. But one of the areas is they've got a sub-forum in there called Steel Dust Junkies, and that's actually a really good forum to peruse. Questions are just, you're trying to build something, you're trying to make something, you're having problems here, or you're having a problem here, and actually the guys on there we're always very willing to help each other and impart some knowledge and help people out. And if you really look through that particular subforum, guys are yeah, I'm having a problem with this, or I'm having a problem with that. You'll have 4 or 5 makers that have been around for a day or two will jump in and say, well, you should try this, or you should try that, or this is what's worked best for me, or this is what's worked best for me here, and you'll have Olishewitz or Mayo and some of these other guys jump in there, and they'll give some advice, or they'll throw a little bit of little tidbits of information out there that's kind of nice. It can come in handy, and just a little nice little impart of knowledge. So
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, you know what? I will say
Wealth
that.
of knowledge.
Yeah, I will say that forums do an excellent job being an integral part of the internet in general because forums don't go away. Like, it's easy to search a forum for knowledge like that. So actually, you know what? You're absolutely right. Like, something like Blade Forums and USN will always be relevant because you'll be able to search the whole forum for information. Whereas, like, Instagram, you can't really search. Like, I mean, you can kind of search Instagram for a specific thing, but it's not like...
source.
Yeah, like, if you went on Blade Forums and you're like, you know, I need to make a knife, like, there'd be thousands of articles about how to make a knife.
When's the last time you got on Blade Forums?
Oh, it's been a really long time. Like, a very long time.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, I probably logged on to USN 6 months ago just to be like, is this is still here? And to check, like, the knuckle draggers, like the AFK forum part. Which I, you know...
No, the forums do have a lot of good information, and as you were mentioning that, something else that really kicked into my mind, and again, because, you know, even to this day, you know, I'm still a huge fan of the fixed blades, and, you know, kind of some of the knives that Elijah's been talking about in the bushcraft area. You know, I'm a big fan of the bushcraft knives myself, and, you know, Blade Forum they've got a strong, you know, sub-forum area for bushcraft, hollow handle style knives, things like that are legitimate knives, not your cheap Chinese or anything like that, or your cheap older Chinese. They're legitimately, you know, well-made, you know, higher-end production to customs, and there's just a whole, you know, community, whole area for that on there. And bushcraft is one of those other areas that it had its own little niche for the longest time, and then over the last few years, with a few of the companies, you know, putting out those styles of knives, kind of brought it back into more of a forefront area.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's right. Like, the sub-forum is an amazing place where communities, like, have a space of their own where they're just like, yeah, that's where I go to check on, you know, daily activities or whatever. Like, social media doesn't really break down like that, but in a forum, like, if you're posting in that sub-forum, that's it. Like, everyone agrees that you're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Where them new pocket trinkets at?
Yeah.
Well, you have that too, but you've got both ends of the spectrum, from the, you know, the new pocket trinkets, or the new feng shui, you name it. Oh, this is the new great gadget, you know, to legitimate, you know, and I'll fall back to that bushcraft one, when a guy who legitimately takes that SE or that, there's so many companies making them now, but I'll just use the SE or Tops as an example for their bushcrafts. We'll take one of those knives out, and we'll put it through its paces. We'll just beat they'll baton it, and they'll actually go out for a few days, you know, camping and, you know, fishing and you name it with it, and put it through a few paces, and then give you legitimate feedback to what it will and what won't do, or to what its capabilities are, versus some dude walking into the backyard and, you know, destroying the table or using it on the table in the backyard, and you know, giving his wife an excuse to go buy a new one.
It's like, do you want to know whether or not your knife sucks? Hand it to a bushcrafter for a week.
Yeah.
Or a weekday. I mean, they don't need a week. Like, yeah, you're gonna know pretty soon.
No, I mean, it's definitely like, on social media will never be able to hold attention span for the length of a YouTube video or a legitimate write-up article, which is exactly where that comes in handy. Like, it's just, oh, you actually want to know something that's longer than like 141 characters? Like, you would need to reference one of these forums. And it'll be there forever. It's not going anywhere. Well, you know, as long as the internet exists.
One of them servers
can
hold up.
You know, but in most cases it's for a very long time. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, nowadays too, the owners of those forums, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a big server that was just a backup.
Oh yeah.
And just backing everything up, because there's just so much there.
Oh my God,
and,
yeah.
and then just the amount of
wonder how
knowledge.
many-
And, the
yeah,
owners of
that's
the
a lot.
forums are just like us. They're the knife collectors, or the knife nuts, or the guys that are just crazy for the knives and love them, and otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. They can't be making money off of something like that. It's
Right.
it's something because it's their passion, just like it's ours.
Yeah.
So did Ernie not start the USN, or some other people started it in his name or something? Like it was just like the usual suspects. It was just that group of guys.
It was that group of guys. There were a couple of them who were the main guys. One was a part, and honestly, I can't remember all their names right now. One of them was a part-time knife maker, and that's and his knife company, or his knife, was Toxic Blade. There's a young man named Ben who's using Toxic Blades now, but
I'm
back
familiar.
then,
I've actually worked with him.
yeah, and he had I forget what he was calling it, but it was something in the Toxic line, and he was one of the guys that helped with it. And there's a dealer from Florida. He's the one that who's basically running the gathering. He's one of the other guys that helped out getting it going as well. There were a few of the guys. It wasn't just one or two. There were several guys that were like, this would be us, and let's move over, because this is just getting really. I mean, if you read back to some of those much older posts or much older threads, they were pretty spicy. There was you could see where a few of those guys were pretty much were banned off Blade forums, 15, 20 years ago, because they were just getting some pretty spicy in there, and a lot of arguments and things like that, and it was just, yeah. So
Anytime someone is that passionate about almost anything, they're gonna butt heads with somebody else who is equally as passionate about it.
Yep. We see that all the time these days.
No, that's an inevitability to a point.
Yep. Is I just see so much of it, and you've got to the point where you do have some knife collectors on social media that are extremely passionate about it and have been around a very long time. And so when you do have a newer knife collector or a younger knife collector pop up, and they're seeing something from a maker who's been around for 30 years, and they're like, well, who's this new guy? And then you see that seasoned collector, that older collector, just start losing his mind. Then it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like Aaron Frederick had to experience. So like, here's this new maker award. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yep.
Like, I've been making. He's been making knives longer than I've been alive.
It's all perspective.
Yep.
It's all
Ignorance,
Oh, yeah.
I guess, but,
Yeah, there was another instance of that about 6 or 8 months ago. There's a slip joint maker out of Texas who's been around for like 30, 40 years, and a new collector, and this was a young man, popped up, and was like, who's this? It looks kind of cool, but who is this guy, or who's this new guy, or whatever? And a couple of the older collectors were just like losing their minds off of it, going, what? You've got to be kidding me, right? And that's why you see a few of these guys, and they're pretty they're pretty. I can't pull names off the top of my head, and I really wouldn't want to throw them out. But you're on Instagram, and that, you know who these guys are, and that, because lately, over the last 6 months, they've started throwing little educational things out about knives, about blade material here, or handle material here, or a history of this, or a history of that, because they lost their minds initially. Then they're like, well, maybe some of these people do need an education, so they do throw something up there about some of these older or these knife makers who've been around a long time, so it's it gets interesting.
I know that Cliff, you and I have kind of talked about this before, and I'm sure I brought it up in passing, but like, it seems like, and it might just be my perspective, but it definitely seems like in the last, I'm going to say 2 to 3 years, it seems like the knife community as a whole is becoming self-aware in a way that it has not in the past. Like, maybe, and then that's another reason you're here now, is just like, is it us, or like is the knife community expanding to a point where it's so much bigger than it has ever been, and like knives are fucking cool on a level that they haven't been in the past, and that's what's attracting these new collectors.
Well, yes, and you have a lot of factors or variables in that. That's one of the areas, one of the positive areas to social media is a lot of knife makers who would not have otherwise become very well known other than their own rural areas, by virtue of the social media, have been able to become more well known amongst the community. And that's where a lot of your younger knife makers are popping up that way as well. Toxic Blades, Ben Chacon being one of those guys, and another young man, Stark from Stark Knives. He's another young man who's just been doing some tremendous work, and you're getting a lot of these really, these young men and young women even these days, who, thanks to social media and getting to know people, are venturing into making knives and are actually getting some assistance from seasoned knife makers, or are getting into the knife collecting community by virtue of what's available from the larger presence of knife makers to the larger presence of your production companies. Your more of your American companies popping up, or they're present, but it's becoming more known, to the Chinese companies over the last 5-6 years, stepping up their game, and providing better quality better quality product than what was produced 15-20 years ago. That $3 Chinese knife versus some of the knives that we and Riot and some of these other companies are producing these days. And with them, in that same note, being a platform for a lot of knife makers or knife designers getting their designs and knives out to people in a way that they could not have normally or previously done. So I think that's greatly affected the knife community and expanded it.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen that just in the past couple of years since I've been in it, even more so now. It's where it seems like now just somebody with a little bit of money and a design can have something made.
Yeah.
And that might not be a great thing, and it might be. Who knows?
That's its own little thing, because it's like, honestly, and with that, the numbers will show. It may not be a great design, and I think a lot of once it hits the dealers or is marketed, that's where they find out that maybe it wasn't as good a design as they hoped or it would be, when it doesn't sell. And that's one of the nice things about these companies, is you can make a run of 150 knives or 300 knives, and you could have a dealer pick those knives up and put them up, and you can see right there, well, they sell out, great. Maybe you had a good idea there, and it's something to look at more in the future. Or it's not selling, very lukewarm response, or a little bit of a critical response, and you're like, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And then just that, it's upon that individual there to decide how he or she will move forward with that. They could either have their head stuck in a hole and keep driving that way and just bang their head against the wall because nothing will ever happen. Or the flip side to the design was actually a good design or a well received design or a trying to think of the right word, a kind of a futuristic enough or a progressive enough design that people really enjoyed it and liked it. And then it's for that person going, okay, now what can I do now? Because that worked and worked great, but do I want to keep doing that, or do I want to progress myself and make something more? Or what's my next step? How
You
can
have your whole life.
How can I level up?
Yeah.
You have your whole life to write that first album, but once that second album needs to happen,
Yeah. Like, are you going to
Then shit gets-
continue to put fucking holes in the blade all the time? Like, just garbage holes in the blade?
yeah, just keep
Or are you just
throwing
going
them damn holes in the blade.
Are you going to level up? That's the question.
Yeah.
We'll
You
see
can't
with
just,
this, with this
you can't just
new,
put fucking holes in the blade all the time. Not
see
you,
with this
but I
new
mean
batch.
other people.
Yeah, we're totally not talking about you here, Leslie.
Yeah, no, not
we'll see
talking
what
about
this
you
new
at
batch of
all.
knives
Well,
out.
it's like
See.
the first movie was great. The second movie was all right.
Right.
The third movie was like meh. Fourth movie was like it went straight to video.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
you want to progress. You want to
Wanna keep
You want
going.
to keep coming up with new stuff and
Yeah.
keep going. And you've got both ends of that spectrum there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and I
that's
think-
something that these companies are allowing people to do now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's actually a good perspective that I don't know if I've looked at it that way, but you're right in the way that it's like short run stuff. Like, fuck it, like, let's just try it, see this works, and that allows for a huge amount of experimentation that otherwise would not be useful. Because otherwise, how would we know that the abstruse was garbage? But now we know because it was made, or sorry, what was that other thing called? Yeah, but
You
I mean
might be
now we
mistaking it
know
for something else.
Now we know, and then
You
so
might
we
be
can
thinking
move
about
on. So that's
the different knife with the
good.
different name.
That's good,
Well,
but
but
now
the
we
thing is,
know.
I don't even own one. I mean, that might tell you something.
It allows dealers who've been in the community and have been around for a long time
Yeah.
to throw their own spin on it too. Because a dealer can go to one of these companies. I mean, they do a Spyderco all the time for sprint runs, and allows a dealer to go to a company and say, you know what, I want to have my exclusive.
Right.
And and Spyderco will respond back, okay, here's your options, and how many do you want?
There's, what?
300, 500, 1,000.
There's
and the
so much
dealer can make their-
integration. Like, there's so much more than there ever has been between makers, like dealers, collectors. The whole thing is just, because a lot of also what we're seeing is production companies teaming up with makers and doing, small sprint runs that are exclusive for dealers. Like, there's like a deck of cards and you can kind of shuffle it however you want. And I don't know, I don't think we've seen everything, but we've seen a lot of stuff in the past couple of years that in the past just wouldn't have been possible,
Yeah. No, we definitely have.
Yeah, for sure. There's an old, I think it's a Knife Center interview from a Blade show like a couple years ago. It's Brad Southard outside talking. They like interviewed him, and I think what he said there in that interview was really important. And I haven't heard it since, really. He said about additive processes, about 3D printing and metal and stuff is really going to shape the industry moving forward.
Man, he was
They'll
wrong.
change the whole industry
Wow.
of manufacturing. It just still hasn't been cheaper. Only one knife
I know.
manufacturer
Once it gets
successfully did it in
cheaper-
production.
Yeah.
It was just still insanely expensive for what it was. It's time. Same thing when 3D printing first came out. It was very expensive. I don't think 3D metal printing will be a viable option for at least another 2 years.
Wait, Nick,
They said it
who's
would be
done
ready.
additive process?
Line Steel did one. They won
Yeah,
an award for it
only Line
last
Steel
year.
has done it, I think.
Okay.
But it was like a $950 knife, and that
It
was
was
still. Yeah, it was ugly. They didn't use it to the best of their experience. If I would have probably used it, I would have probably made a knife look solid, and then but like have it weigh nothing because the entire inner structure would have been honeycomb.
Would've been a
What they
cage.
did is they made it look like a spiderweb knife, which made it just look like a flea market knife. But they're just trying to show off what they could do with it, which was pretty cool and all. And even then, what they charged, I think it was like $900 some. That still wasn't enough, knowing what it costs to use the system. It's
they probably
super
had a
slow,
loss.
and Yeah, when they did it was even earlier. Now they came out with the first commercial units, but even those units are still about 80 grand, just to get the basic versions. And it's mainly like a really high end prototyping machine. The only time it's worth using in industry are doing things like propellers, like really complex machine parts. Not on knife handle just yet. It'll be a few more years, but at this point, they're printing titanium. They're printing certain high alloy steels, similar to M390. All the tool steels are printable, and it's just growing.
All right.
But it's going to be some time.
Process. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be a while for that. But there was also a young man up in Canada, a Spartan knife maker.
Liam Cooley. Yeah, I busted his balls because he never actually finished that knife. But yeah, he was working on it because he was specializing in that. But I think he's doing something else for work now. He doesn't mess with us often. But yeah, I mess with him every time I see him because he still goes to the New York show and Blade show, USN sometimes. But he never really finished that knife. But he was very close. He 3D printed the entire knife, like blade and handle and spacer.
Yeah, he worked in a shop that had that machine. I guess.
Yeah, from what? Yeah, he's a good kid. He started off wanting to be a knife maker, and he was getting some help from with some established makers, and he ended up getting accepted to because he's really bright, and he got accepted to engineering school, and was going to the engineering school and was doing, from what I understand, very well there, and they were basically giving him free run of their shop, and they had the 3D. They had the metal printer there, and that's what he was using.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
he's
what blows my mind back.
He's a really nice young man.
Back in the day, like 8 years ago, I used to Skype call with him and teach him how to do 2D CAD. With like Skype video sharing, and all of a sudden, like 4 years later, he's like, "Oh, I'm doing all this," and I'm like, "Hey, can you teach me now?"
Can you show me?
He's made a couple of my designs even.
Wow, really?
Liam Cooley, yeah, he's one of the only. Him and Ben are actually the two people that have made the first ever of my knives ever. Like, it was just him and Ben. Yeah, I got one of them. I don't even know where the folder is. I'll have to ask him. But there's only one. He only made one of them. But yeah, he's pretty.
It might make it to our industry at some point. I think it's going to be a while. Like I said, I don't think what's been done is used right. It's going to change some things about it. It'll be a cool, easy way to make integrals, that's for sure. Or even sectional knives with that, like Elijah does.
Also, kind
it'll take some time.
Yeah, and honestly, it's going to be coming out of your bigger production companies too.
That would probably make sense.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of your knife makers staying pretty traditional. Yeah, stuff like that, just because of the expense. You know, look how long it's taken for so many makers for the CNC to come along because of expense, and that'll be the same
I don't
thing.
even think it'll be the 3D printing, because even to this day, 3D plastic printing has been out for a while, and it's never become a production thing. Even now, it's been out for 10 plus years, and you could get into 3D printing for $100 nowadays.
Yeah.
It's more of a prototype process. Even like manufacturers, they'll have a 3D printer unit, and they'll prototype everything out with it, and now they have SLA printers, which are even better and more defined. But like, as soon as the product is made, it goes to casting. What I think will really happen is they've been really developing casting a lot better these days, and I think they'll be developed. Like, titanium casting is still fairly new. I think that's what's going to get better, and the 3D printing will still be for rapid, low-cost prototyping, and I think they're going to advance more casting capabilities.
Benchmade 42 handles were titanium cast.
That's so weird.
Yeah, which is ahead of its time at that time. It was still relatively new, and I still think that was a different type of cast.
They didn't do that in-house, did they?
process. I think what they're doing now is different.
We had a guy come into the shop, and he was like, I used to work at Benchmade, and I was like the head like caster. Like, he's like, I have like whole sets of 40 series Benchmades.
Huh.
And he was like, yeah, I used to like work on the cast for that. And that's like, it's intensely insane. Like, yeah.
but now that they're trying to incorporate rapid cast technology into that, which I noticed the Kalashnikov have switched, and they're using some sort of rapid cast for that. But that's not titanium, of course.
Right. It's pretty far out.
Yeah, when you mentioned that last time when we were, I forgot who we were talking to, looked into
But
that.
what about
It's a very different process.
Yeah.
what about stabilized mayonnaise though?
Right. Well, that's the thing that will tip the
I
scales
wanna
for a
do
lot
that,
of
yeah.
this, is the stabilized mayonnaise. Oh, God.
Liquid nitrogen.
Liquid nitrogen with the stabilized mayonnaise. Cliff. So let's go back and then let's go forward a little bit. But so we went over sort of the forums. We went over the early days. What does your collection look like these days? I know that you pretty much don't flip. Like, that's like you buy stuff and you pretty much you hold on to it unless unless it's Elijah's knife. Then you want to get rid of that shit.
Oh God!
But I mean,
Right in the feels. Right in the feels.
Right in the feels.
Well, I do sell off. You can't just keep buying and not sell anything because
Right.
it can be too much. You know,
then you'll enjoy what you get.
there's a lot of expense, and you only have so much room in a house. At one point, you
You'll
know,
become John Gray.
but no, for the longest time, that's what I was doing. I was buying and buying and buying, and I was basically stashing knives wherever I could find space.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually nice as the kids were getting older and leaving the house, so I could take over a room and move all of my stuff in. And up until the day my wife decided to walk into that room and went, "Oh my God, what is this?" And
Yeah, that could be an
So
issue.
like some like murder cave or something.
and she was
That
like,
came out the divorce papers.
no. But she was like, "You have a problem," and she was like, "How many knives do you have?" I was like, "I don't know."
You're like, not enough yet.
But so I went through and because I have a lot of the older Maxpedition. Maxpedition used to make a bag. I don't know if they still do or not. That it's a knife collector's bag, and it'll hold 20 knives or something like that. And I had about 10 or 15 of them. And then the old big military tanker bags, the ones they would use for the heavier trucks and the tanks and heavier machinery, the bags to hold all of the larger tools and that. I had 20 or 30 of those full up with knives and such, and so it kind of prompted me at that point to kind of go through and do a count and see what I actually had, and I was like, wow, I do have quite a bit. And so at that point there, and with a short, angry woman looking daggers at me, I was like, okay, I guess I'll
Figuratively and physically.
consolidate it. So at that point I realized maybe I should kind of shorten it down a bit. As I'm sitting in my office looking around, I don't really think I have, but I actually have, surprisingly. But no, I was bad. At one point, I had over 500 bussy knives.
Holy moly.
Whoa.
Damn. That's like 5 of each piece. Of each one of
That's
them.
like a
I
house.
had a lot of different ones, yeah. I think the Team Gemini, which is a more popular one because of The Walking Dead, I think I had like 60 of them.
Holy moly.
The what?
I mean, and it goes with a lot of the makers. Emerson, at one point I had well over 100 Emerson knives, and it was a good combination of two. I probably had at least 60 of the customs and 30 or 40 of the productions, and Microtech, at one point probably 60 or 70 of those, which for Microtech collectors, that's actually
Yeah,
rather small. But all of mine were SOCOM Deltas and Matrixes and things like that. I really wasn't into the autos as much then. So it was more of the manual folding knives. I was actually sitting on one for a couple of years, and I didn't even realize it was a dual action. So it was, and even now I'll pull out old Microtechs I didn't even realize I had, because it's like I bought it and just stuck it in a corner. But I'm a huge fan of Tashi Barucha, so I've got between his knives and the knives that makers have made for him in collaborations, I've probably easily got 80-90 of his knives.
Oh wow. Okay.
Tashi's?
I'd been a fan of Jim Burke for a long time, and so I had a good 30, 40, 50 of his knives. It's no secret that I'm a huge fan of Peter Rizzenti. I really like his designs. Yeah. I love his integrals. And yeah, well, Philippe was Georget's more the last few years. But yeah, with Rizzenti, same thing. I was probably at one point I was up to 60 of his knives at least. Before Philippe Georget, I kind of just started getting into him a few years ago. Yeah, I'm not too bad. I've only got maybe about 8 of his knives. But So a lot of these makers, I really enjoy. And so I have picked up a lot. But I mean, I've got, again, the same thing. Sitting in my office as I'm looking around here, I have everything from Spyderco's sitting here to literally like the Georgets here in front of me, and the Tashis. It's, I've got, it's a wide variety. I'm not. I love knives, and so I just have a variety. I've got case knives sitting here. I have my grandfather's Schrade knives and old timers, from what he gave me when I was younger, and plus what he had when he passed away. They're sitting here right on a stand in front of, sitting in here in front of me on top of my desk. So it's just
nice.
It's just a very large collection. I'm not, I never tried, and I hoped to never fall into the knife snob category where I have to have this or that. Like I've said so many times, so many people, I have a love for knives, and so it's not, it can be a little Swiss Army knife, or it could be, you name it. It's it's a knife. It's a design I like. It's aesthetically pleasing to me. Cool. I'm all for it.
Yeah. There's something interesting about, like, after being in it so long, like getting like a nice cheap knife. There's like a nice feeling about it. I don't know. It's like, oh, it's simple. It's there. It's like I don't have to worry about it. It was not very much money. Like a Swiss Army knife or something. Like you kind of appreciate it more after having the, really high-end stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. I mean, you don't have to worry about it or something. I mean, the thing is, and I think that sort of echoes sort of what Cliff is going after there, which is at some point when you appreciate an object, the object transforms, and it could take different forms, but as long as it's still a knife, it still executes its task. It has a blade, it has a handle, goes in your pocket. You can start to appreciate everything. Like you look at a Kershaw, a ProTech, a Gerber, whatever, or any kind of custom. At some point you're using the same eyes to appreciate the piece for different quality measures. Is it useful? First of all, can you carry it and can you cut stuff with it? Be it custom or production. It's an essential tool.
Yeah, it is in that respect as well. But also, you've had so many fads and trends go through amongst the EDC community, and luckily the knife collecting and the knives have stayed true in the respect of having their place. They've changed along with them, because you can see the trends over the years of knives. The popular is your tacticals, your tactical folders, or your big overbuilt knives, or like what we're kind of seeing right now. We're kind of moving towards the smaller knives are starting to come back into favor a little bit more now. And I think it's because a lot of these other items that have kind of been coming and and made their splash and are kind of on their way out in the EDC community, like the fidget spinners and the fidget tops and all of this other stuff. And I think the smaller knives coming back, kind of making their their way back in now, because I think they're meeting that. They're meeting that fidget factor. They're meeting that, I still need something I want to fiddle around with, play with, but that's not it, and I want to be true to myself. And so you've got this, you have this smaller, knife, sitting here that you can just twirl around in your fingers, and and just enjoy it and play with it a little bit, and it just meets that factor.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, it's there is a fidget factor that's really pleasing about a certain size knife like that. I mean, it just fits. Like, you can just you can play with it, and it's, I don't know, it's nice.
Yeah, and I mean, perfect examples is like, as the show was starting, Nick was playing with the Spyderco, and and part of that was because he was enjoying it, and he was just flicking it and just playing with it, having it in his hands, and as you sit at your desk, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's got knives sitting all over his desk, and as I'm doing my work, I'll take a minute and just pick one up and just roll it around on my fingers, or just kind of flick it a few times just to play with it a little bit and kind of fidget, and then when I'm done with it, just put it down and go back to work. And I'm sure there are quite a few guys out there that are like that, and it's meeting that factor, that need.
Right. Yeah, I dig that. Cliff, what is what's your grail knife right now? That's or what's something you're going after? Not to spoil your future grabs, but
there's nothing in specific I'm going after. I don't know. It's kind of a subject I've tried to stay away from, because as I've sold knives over the years, people have offered me other knives, and I don't do a lot of trading. I'll just sell it, and my wife will either take the money and use it for the kids or the grandkids, or I'll put it into another knife or something that catches my interest. But right now, I mean, in all honesty, it's an area I've owned so many knives over the last 40 years. I haven't plateaued or apexed by any means, but it's I don't know. It's like there's nothing I'm really chasing. It's something new or really to catch my interest. I have never wanted to say to anybody, there's nothing you can offer me because I've already had it. I mean, unfortunately, I am quite a ways down that route, because I have had a lot of knives over the years, and when I did have to do the inventory of my collection, at that time I actually had over 4,000 knives in my collection, and my wife was about ready to kill me.
Ooh.
And
that is respectable.
So I've whittled it down. And
3,988.
No. I've actually whittled it down probably about halfway.
Oh, okay. All right.
I still have a lot here, but I've gotten it down, and as much as I'd like to have used it in other knives, I do have children and grandchildren now, so my wife is a very ruling authority in that respect. So a lot of that's gone towards them, but it's I don't know. I like to see what's coming out, and I'm not looking at any one maker or any one manufacturer in particular. I like to see what's coming out, and Jared, as you will know, I sit here every day and I look at everybody's sites to keep an idea of what's going on and who's coming out, and I look forward to see what's coming out because of the innovation. But there's nothing really anymore I'm chasing too much.
Yeah. Something that catches
my
your
eyes
eye.
My eyes are. I'm always keeping my eyes open.
Yeah.
And I mean, how often do I send you pictures of stuff going,
It's
well,
true.
it's this, or, it's,
That's always
And,
I love it, and then I'm always like, oh man, like I love it, and then sometimes I'm like, shit, like I should get that, and then I'm like, oh god, like if I didn't know about that, I wouldn't have to buy that.
Oh man, it's some good stuff. Huh?
Yeah,
But
there's some choice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's and again, it doesn't have to be anything huge and spectacular. It's about 7-8 months ago when I picked up this Spyderco, this Smock Spyderco, I changed the scales out to red because I really like red, and this thing has just been a lot of fun to play with and use over the last 6-8 months, and it's been one in my pocket a lot. On the same note, everybody knows that I like Resendi and Kinnison too, so I've always got one of them on me as well. So it's funny when the guys at the shop start giving me a hard time, or they start wanting to do pocket dumps and that, and pulling out, and you see, I'll pull out anything from a Swiss Army knife to a, I think I had a Lee Williams.
One of the best knives I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's just the enjoyment of the collecting and of what they are. Yeah.
Nice.
I'll never forget when you had that the one Tashi Burke Marsh Fellholter collab.
Oh, that one, yeah.
And like, wow, I was like my grail for so long. Like just one of those, and I think, what is it? You have 2 of them?
Yeah, I have 2 of them. There were 3 made. I have 2 of them.
Okay,
there
there
were
were
3 in
made.
existence, and Cliff has 2 of them.
And I know the guy that has the 3rd one, by the way. But
That's
These
great.
are like
yeah,
the most
it's-
sought after knives in existence. If you're a
That's
Tashi Marsh Burke fan,
All right, all in one.
yeah, it's that one.
Sick
They did an
package.
Immortal Pup. They did an Immortal Pup once that was like super thick. Cliff, I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about.
yeah, I remember it.
It was a front. Marsh did I think it was Zircotai clip, and it was just all plain stonewash tie. And man, it's like the most beautiful knife I've ever seen.
Wow. All right.
To this day, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's awesome.
Yeah, no,
I would say that's probably my grill.
So, let me tell you, there's some absolutely fantastic knives that have been made and are out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they don't have to be the flashy, with all the exotic materials and all that. They can be more of a simple design or build, and it's absolutely fantastic. And and it has its own demand.
Right.
Yep. I would like to see
I make
a lot
simple
of
knives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no, and they're great
deceptively
knives.
Nick.
I've made a career of not doing full dress knives just because I'm like, I don't like them.
Yeah,
you stick to one thing long enough.
and they are great knives. The knives of yours that I have, I enjoy them. They're great.
Yeah, I have quite a few.
And
Every time I put up a knife on the listing, it's like, oh, Clifford Wilson. Cliff. Nice. He's like, another one. I'm like, did he just? He bought an imp, and then like a week later, he bought another imp. I'm like, did he just get it? I'm like, he didn't even get the first in the mail yet. I don't think.
Gotta keep them coming.
yeah. Yeah, well, and it's because it's like I was talking about. Those imps are actually, for me, really meeting that fidget factor. And
Yeah, they're fun to fidget with because they're small and they don't half open. It's either they're open or they're closed.
yeah, no, and they've really met that niche for me. That's why I enjoy carrying them around.
I gotta make myself one.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the for one of them with some kind of red scales on it.
So yeah, I gotta figure that out because I have like 40 more various fat carbons, but not the black and red, and I got 31 to tie to make right now. So like, do I want to cut more fat carbon? We'll see.
Nick, you just got to figure out how to anodize titanium red.
There you go.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's not possible because aluminum's fine.
Well, it's
Science.
Totally.
No, that's
it's not
totally different, my
Yeah,
guy.
it's-
Well, I
Yeah,
always
it's-
thought that the AL in the 6AL4V
the
was
color-
the stuff that's being anodized.
No,
The aluminum in it.
no, they added aluminum to the mix. Titanium anodizes electrically. Aluminum anodizes not electrically. The colors are coming out of it. It's a dye.
It's a chemical bath.
So you
Gotcha.
etch it in acid and you open up the pores and then you fill the pores up with whatever dye. So it's like paint. So you can mix the dyes and get different tones of color.
Yeah.
So color options are
Okay.
almost infinite.
I
And then you
didn't
do
know
a
that.
third process which seals the dye into the pores.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's why when you
I've
anodize
heard
colors,
something
like every batch will be a very different color because they have to mix their dyes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
welcome
so it's just
to
not compatible.
the things about
That's a shame.
knives.
No, you were at ProTech with us. You saw they had a full-time employee that just organized anodizing colors because different
Oh, yeah,
batches
I
will be
know.
different colors.
Yeah.
The consistency of that, but yeah, just like it's just
Yeah,
so-
and you can
Nice.
actually see that when you work in a shop and you carry the when you carry those different companies,
when you actually
those alloys, you can see like one batch will be
Oh boy.
the blue will be different from the next batch of the blue because something just a little bit in that in
Temperature
in
of the fluid
colors
could be
that they mix
different,
in,
so
yeah.
it took
Yeah.
a different amount of dye.
yeah, in the end,
So
the
it's
end
not
user doesn't know
simple.
because he doesn't have anything to compare to.
He doesn't have like 75 of the same model like sitting on a desk.
Exactly. Like, hey, wait a minute, none of these match.
Being like, oh my god,
Yeah.
why do
When
none of
Cliff
these
goes through
match?
collection, he's like, oh, these are from different batches.
Oh god. Yeah.
You want the light blue?
I mean,
the extra blue,
I see it a lot, again with ProTech, Microtech, I mean, even in my own collection, again, I like red, and so I was sitting there buying up Microtechs, red handle Microtechs, but it's like, when I've got one that's red, and then I've got another one that's closer
pinkish.
to pinkish than red, but they're calling it red, then it's like, a little off in the formulations, so.
That's custom.
But, I mean, it just, that can
I
be
guess-
with any of the colors.
that would probably have to be done in smaller batches, I guess.
So
Not anodized.
No,
it
just-
happens a lot with. We see it a lot with black. They'll be just a little bit off, and it'll be more like a really dark navy blue than actual black.
If you keep it in the acid etch for a minute longer, a minute shorter, it's just too much variables. The
Yeah.
dye gets worn out, so the pigment gets thinner. So like I said, a lot of variables. Sometimes it's in the aluminum because aluminum bar is extruded one way, aluminum sheet is extruded another way. So,
the,
that
like the
changes
form
it too.
of the metal changes it. Does it take
Yeah,
anodizing?
Yep. I don't know exactly why, but the different roll
titanium's the
processes
same
opens
way.
up the pores differently. Yep.
Different grades
Sometimes
of
I'll have
titanium.
like
Yeah.
It's shit like
I used
that
to use
and
grade
learn-
38 tie, and normal tie they anodize differently.
Yep.
And learning how like titanium can warp and do all kinds of weird shit when working with it, I was like, damn, do I want to make knives out of titanium?
Yeah, that's been
Doesn't
the
seem to
8-year
be the
struggle.
base
It's fighting
material.
warp. Knife making is 80% fighting warp. Well, folder knife making.
Yeah. That's gonna be your
You want-
holdback, Elijah. It's just the titanium warpage.
Yeah,
Fight
that's
the
just as big as holdback.
Right. That's the largest.
I need
As
to
soon
fight
as
the
you can,
warp.
as soon as you can conquer the warp, though, those knives you're making will just be, they'll be really good.
You know.
They'll be really good.
But see, if I never make
and then
any more knives, those knives that I did make, damn, will they be worth a lot of money?
That's true.
Yeah, if you'd like, go on PBK Vegas' website. You can get a
right.
recurve neck knife for
Nick.
$1,500.
Thank you, Nick.
Little plug.
Yeah.
Very possible. That
Elijah Figs Blade 1 of
It'll be
2.
there.
It comes with
Yeah.
a custom Microtech
Comes with two
direct
levels.
delta.
weighs 7.
Yeah. Well,
No, but yeah, there's
I don't
a
know
lot.
where I was going
There's
with that,
the warp situation is
yeah, the warp.
You
Yeah.
start when you start making like bolster locks and stuff like that, the thinner materials, and everyone's like, people start bitching about gaps being here and there. I was like, honestly, I've made a knife before where it was a bolster lock and there was no gaps. It was perfect. And then you take it apart and then you sandblasted it. Like the frame. Sandblasting actually causes a lot of warp because it releases warp. It releases stress in the material, which causes it to warp. And then you put it back together and you have a giant gap in this bolster lock now. And you're like, fuck. Now what? Do I have to accept it or what? Do I have to remake it? Like, you can't just massage it back together. It's not putty.
There's
Yeah,
no
Michael
exception.
Walker's life must be hell. He's just chasing tolerances all day long.
Yeah,
Jason Dawn.
I can imagine. So, I don't know. I think Cliff. I think that brings us to current day, pretty good. Yeah, I want to. I definitely want to. I want to thank you for coming on, and sharing some stories with us. I hope we can get you on again and
Yeah, this was fun.
go over some stuff. So we're looking forward to seeing you at the upcoming USN then, which will be in August.
Yes.
September.
Yeah, September. No, August. Wait.
End of August,
It's
beginning
September.
September.
Yeah,
September
end of
3rd to the
August.
7th.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be the beginning of September.
Oh, it's September 3rd to the 7th.
Okay. Yeah. End of August. Whatever.
Labor Day weekend.
That's right.
Yeah, best friends.
Yeah.
We all survive and make it to there.
Which we will. That's
100%.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Cliff, you have an Instagram. Where can people find you on the social medias?
I'm mainly on Instagram. I'm Cliff Talon on Instagram. I really don't do much with Facebook. Just Instagram being so much of an easier platform. That's mostly where everybody will find me there. And again, I'm Cliff Talon on there.
Nice. Yeah, everybody go check out Cliff's page. The feed is intense and varied, and you can see some of the knives we were talking about. It's an impressive
unrivaled.
collection. It really is. So
Thank you.
yeah, definitely check that out. And Cliff, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
And we'll have you on again.
Yeah, no, this is fun. Yeah, I like this.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna sign off. This is Jeremiah Burbank from PVK Vegas. Thanks again for listening to another awesome episode of Bladeology. We'll talk to you guys soon. Anybody, just anybody.
Oh, well, no. Last time you
I thought we already did that.
Last time you ended it like that, and you said we were gonna edit it in, guy. Can't be switching it up on us week to week.
Yeah, I thought you said you
All right,
made one.
I'll just
Oh,
edit
on
it
that
in.
note, Nick Trooper, just leave all this in here. On that note, Nick Trooper of NCC Knives signing out. You can find me at nccknives.com or NCC Knives on Instagram. Hamish Malaise.
Yeah, the thing with the, the Instagram.
I'll fix that later.